If you've ever watched a Grantham video and thought, I could do that, then try saying go ahead and hit that subscribe button 10 times fast, because that is a tongue twister. Go ahead and hit the subscribe. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. There we go. So instead of trying to be Grantham, I'm simply going to be your friendly neighborhood compulsive gun buyer, showing you some of his long-range setups. So, for starters, we have my SPR. So let's talk for a second about the SPR and its philosophy of use. So the philosophy of use for the SPR is you want to be able to reach out and touch targets at 800 yards and maybe beyond if you have good ammo, even though it's a 5.56 platform. But you also want to be able to engage targets at close range relatively effectively, hopefully perfectly effectively, and anything in between. So it's the quintessential do-all rifle in many ways, but it certainly leans towards the farther end of the spectrum, and it's especially for situations where you don't know what kind of targets or what kind of engagements you might be getting into. All right, so let's talk about what we have on this rifle. Of course, at the tip, we've got the standard Daniel Defense bird cage. This is what comes with their rifles. Behind that, we have a Magpul bipod. I like this bipod. It's not as light as some options, but it is relatively lightweight, very strong. I don't mind the plastic. I have a Tango Down vertical foregrip. We've got Imbus Pro backup irons, although right now I'm actually missing it on the back. Took them off for a video, but normally I'd have Imbus Pro backup irons in both places, obviously. We've got a Surefire light. This is their Vampire light. Not necessarily the best light for this rifle. It does have a very nice center beam, especially considering the lumen output, so it is effective. It would pair better if I had a red dot, a backup red dot on this gun, either top mounted or offset. Initially, I did plan on putting an offset red dot on, and I still might do that. Theoretically, if I didn't have the D-ball on this gun, I would still have some night vision capability, even at close range, because I could passive aim with a red dot and have some source of artificial illumination in a CQB scenario. Would that be the best setup? Absolutely not, but better than nothing, and certainly better than trying to passive aim through a 2.5x scope. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, so let's go ahead and get back to this. The Surefire switch is one of their dual switches. It is not currently connected to my light, although I could certainly connect it with one of these guys, the DS00s. These are great, and I could easily screw it in, and then I would still have access to the button. But right now, it's set up so that the D-ball can be removed very easily and added back on, so this could go in your backpack, and in most cases, you'd walk around with it like this, because this is much lighter. You really take off about half a pound. And we'll get to all the weights in a second, because I think that's often forgotten when people review their setups, is to tell people how much it weighs, because it's really one of the most important factors when it comes to the long-range effectiveness of your rifle, and I mean long-range walking, not shooting. Moving back, we have a GLX 2.5 to 10 scope. This is primary arms, mounted on a ScalarWorks mount. The one thing I don't like about this ScalarWorks mount, and I'll start with the bad news because otherwise it's a fantastic mount, it doesn't really have a way to mount a red dot without mounting it directly to the scope. It doesn't have one of those options where you can swap out the top piece and put on a pick rail or put on a RDS mount. That would be nice, but otherwise it's a fantastic mount. It's extremely lightweight, pretty much the best in class for the strength that it has. Maybe I'm just a sucker for a good brochure, but I do like ScalarWorks. I've used their mounts on many of my rifles. The scope is excellent so far. I have no complaints. And to see a glass comparison between this rifle and the Vortex Razor 1 to 10, you can check out one of the other videos on my channel. The sling that I have on here is a T-Rex Arms sling. I like this sling because it's very lightweight. And a lot of times you don't think about that when it comes to slings, because you think, well, that's going to be on your body. Is that really going to be perceived weight in the rifle? And the answer is yes, because you're not always going to have your sling on. Sometimes you're going to be carrying your rifle like this. And even just when you pick it up, the first thing you notice if you have a heavy sling is, wow, this is a heavy rifle. Even if you have a generally light rifle, some of those slings are really heavy. That's why I'm not a big fan of the Vickers Blue Force Gear slings. They just tend to be excessively heavy. They also kind of itch for me. The T-Rex arm sling is plenty strong enough. I haven't had any complaints in terms of durability or being able to, hold the rifle secure. And it is very lightweight and generally comfortable. Safety I have on here is the Radian safety. Big fan of these. Pretty much, if I was going to get an upgraded safety, it would only be the Radian. I have a few others that were sort of hand-me-downs or I got in a good deal, but this is the only one that I would pay for full price. It's like $45 usually, and well worth it. It's a little bit longer on this side, and just the ergonomics are fantastic. I like Magpul pistol grips. This stock is Magpul. I often go with B5 systems, but this is their slim line, and it works well for this rifle. It's a little bit lighter weight as well. Trigger is a Geisley trigger. It's their SSAE. Fantastic trigger. I'm sure you've seen it ghosted a million times. Might as well do it once more. No harm. A little bit of pre-travel there. It is a 2-stage trigger. And then boom. All right. Nice reset. Boom. All right. Let's see. Anything else on here? The charging handle is the Daniel Defense grip and rip charging handle. I like it just fine. I prefer the Radian, I guess, but really, I kind of like how this one doesn't stick out very far. It's got good gripping material. No complaints with it. Would I buy this one as opposed to the Radian? Probably not, but that's just because I like to have, the same charging handle across all platforms, and I've kind of committed to Radian, but this is a fantastic charging handle. I think it's just generally maybe a little bit more expensive, but it depends. I think Radian you can usually get on sale. I've never really seen a sale for the Daniel Defense one, but that's just personal preference. In the back, I do have a QD end plate. Nothing special there. That actually comes with the Daniel Defense rifle, so just a plug for them. One thing I have yet to mention is the diffuser cap on the D-ball. So this is from Villain Weapon Systems. One of the complaints that I have with the D-ball is that even when you pull it all the way out, the light pattern is still too narrow. I might do a video in the future comparing the light pattern without the cap and then with the cap. So I think that's everything on the SPR. Let's go ahead and switch to the battle rifle. But first, let's go ahead and weigh this rifle. The SPR weighs in at 11 pounds, 0.1 ounce. When you add the 20-round magazine, you get 11 pounds, 11.7 ounces. And with the 30-round magazine, you get 12 pounds, 1.6 ounces. Now the SPR with the D-ball is 11 pounds, 14.2 ounces. And when you add the 20-round magazine, you get 12 pounds, 9.3 ounces. And the 30-round magazine is 12 pounds, 15.8 ounces. The 20-round magazine by itself, with green tips, or M855, is 11.6 ounces. And the 30-round magazine, also with green tips, is 1 pound, 1.8 ounces. So if you wanted to take this beauty into battle with a 20-round magazine loaded and 10 additional mags, 8 30-rounders and 2 20-rounders, that's 300 rounds total, this will result in a combat loadout of 22 pounds, 14.9 ounces. So here we have the battle rifle. This is, of course, a SCAR from FN. And let's talk about it. So, first of all, battle rifle philosophy of use. Basically, it's an assault rifle, but it's the assault rifle that she told you not to worry about. Typically chambered in .308 or a long-range capable cartridge, but meant for more close-range engagements, but can be pressed into service in the long range. So it's when you want something that's extremely capable at close range, but harder hitting. The same way that an SPR is typically a closer range to intermediate range gun pressed into longer range service, the battle rifle is a long range gun pressed into close range service with the option of reaching out farther as well. So that's pretty much what you have here with the SCAR. And this is sort of the basic battle rifle configuration, and I can put things like a bipod on it and a D-ball to make this even more usable in other scenarios as well. So we'll talk about that in a second, and again, I'm going to compare the weights of all these things. All right, so let's go tip to butt. At the top here, we have the muzzle device that ships with the SCAR. It's a brake. I don't really like brakes for this kind of gun. I did do some evening testing just to see what kind of flash it produces, and so I'll show that in the screen here. And I did some with night vision as well. It's a good brake. It's meant for competition. It works very well. I would like to probably put a Surefire flash hider on there. It kind of depends on if I decide to suppress it, which I would never do because that voids your warranty. But if I did, then that would probably dictate which flash hider I end up going with. I've got a bipod mount, which we'll get to in a second because we're going to convert this into more of a SPR configuration in a second. Maybe even DMR. Surefire dual fuel flashlight. This is not the turbo version. I don't think they even had the turbo version when I first outfitted this gun. Then I have an Emissary Development handbrake. It's great. I like it. It doesn't add all the bulk that a vertical foregrip does, and it just serves as a handbrake, which is really all I use vertical foregrips for anyway. So let's talk about this rail extension that I have here. So this is from Kinetic Development Group, KDG. It is a replacement for a number of the parts on the SCAR. So you can see it kind of, this whole undercarriage here is replaced. And it actually, because it replaces parts, it doesn't add very much weight at all. You can see on their website exactly what the difference is. But it's kind of, ounces and change. I have mixed feelings about this rail section. What I've come to realize is that I don't need this much M-lock. I really just need two well-placed M-lock pieces. One for a angled foregrip or a vertical foregrip or brake, whatever, handbrake, and one for my flashlight. Otherwise, I want Picatinny, and I really want it integral to the rail itself. So I prefer not to have to put a rail section here. I prefer for, quad rail essentially. But I don't need all that quad rail either. So it's like I just need a few M-lock slots and then some Picatinny right here, and preferably Picatinny here as well, just in case I'd like to put a PEC here. So anyways, I just don't really feel like I'm making much use of it. I could have already put a vertical foregrip here with the rail section that came with the SCAR. I already had pick rail right here. I am able to get my light further out front, so that's, I guess, nice, but is it, worth the cost and a little bit of extra weight to get that? Probably not. There are other options that I'd probably go with now. Some probably with some pick rail. Midwest Industries has one that I don't think goes out this far, but it's just pick rail just right here around the front sight post. So anyways, that's been my experience. I got this because it seemed like other people were getting it. I saw it in a Grantham video, and I'm sure it has its uses. I just haven't really appreciated it all that much, mainly because it doesn't have any pick options, and that's just my preference. So I have a Surefire dual switch here. The light is activated by the switch. However, the laser guy is just dangling here because I have a D-ball that I can connect when I need it. Otherwise, this guy's going in my backpack, saving me some weight. So you notice the theme here. On these heavy guns with long-range capabilities, I like to keep my D-ball as an optional add-on. You can throw it on if you know you're going to need it or you think you might need it, but otherwise, and this is most of the time, you can leave it off, save yourself some weight. Okay, pause. There is a discussion to be had around whether or not a laser aiming module will hold zero when being removed and then put back on a rifle, and how to mitigate that zero shift. We're just not going to have that discussion right now. And of course, you could, tape this together with some electrical tape just so it's not dangling. Cable management. One other thing on cable management is I have a Monstrum cable management device. I don't know what they call it, but Monstrum's not a particularly premium brand, but I like this. It's cheap, comes with like 3 of them, and it just connects to the M-lock. That's been nice. Moving back, we have the Delta Point Pro. This is the night vision version, which is more expensive, mounted on a T-Rex arms mount. It's got a good angle. I have the 100 Concepts kill flash there. I also would like to get one for my scope, just don't have that yet. Prevents any sort of scope glint. T-Rex arms sling, just like on the other guy. Again, I like it because it's light, and this is already a very heavy gun. Got a Vortex 1 to 10, and this is, again, in keeping with the philosophy of this rifle. It is very capable at close range. You've got that daylight bright red dot option at the 1X, and it can go all the way out to 10X, and so you've got a very capable optic from 1 all the way to 10 power, or theoretically from very close range to all the way up to 1,000 yards. And then again at the 1X, I also have this offset red dot, which I've used with night vision. I've used just regular close-up, and it's very fast, very effective. The mount I have here, because SCARs just kill optics, apparently, I've never had it happen. This is a Bobro mount designed specifically for the SCAR, and it's chonky. I would probably go with a Scalar Works if I had to do it over again, just because they're much lighter. But then again, I don't want to, ruin an optic. I think Vortex has a lifetime warranty, so I would hope that being killed by a scar is covered in that warranty. And so, again, if I had to do it again, I'd probably go with ScalarWorks, but the Bobro mount has been very tough. It's just very heavy. Looking down here at the trigger well, I have a Parker Mountain Machine battery control device, just like a bad lever for the AR-15. It allows me to catch the bolt back here and drop it. And that's really nice because I have a right side charging handle as opposed to putting it on the left-hand side. The left-hand side, because it's reciprocating, I don't have the modification that doesn't reciprocate, which is better if you can get it. On the left-hand side, having the bolt there is just not really an option for me. The sling gets in the way, your hand gets in the way, so that's just a no-go. I have it on the right-hand side, but if you have it on the right-hand side and you've got a chonky mount like this and a offset red dot, then you really have to have an angled charging handle, which is what this is. So if that looks off to you, that's why. This is from GG&G, so that's definitely better. I haven't been cutting up my hands nearly as much. I definitely used to. You can do it from either side if you like to reach around. Safety is the stock safety, so that's been fine. Stock, Ugg boot, I like it. Don't hate. The MOE pistol grip that I have here is actually modified by Parker Mountain Machine because for whatever reason, the scar surface here, the geometry is not the same as an AR-15, and so you can't just use regular, Magpul furniture for the pistol grip. You have to actually kind of shave off some parts, and so Parker Mountain Machine gets the Magpul furniture, shaves it appropriately, and then it fits perfectly on the scar. Backup irons are just the ones that come with the scar. They're fine. And of course, on the front, I didn't show you, but I will. You've got this guy. One thing that I did not realize about the scar when I first bought it was how to move this guy up and down. There is not anything on the right-hand side that moves it. There's a little button on the left, and you just push up and pull. Push up, bring up. The trigger is a stock trigger. We'll go ahead and ghost that for you. Safety's on. Always take your safety off before ghosting triggers. Yeah, it's pretty stiff. Yeah. I'd like to replace it with a Geisley. They just cost a bunch for scars. Okay, so I think that's it for the battle rifle in the battle rifle configuration. Let me just briefly show you what it would look like if we fully kitted it out. So I have the optional night vision mod, and then if I want to make it more deadly for longer distances, you just throw on this bipod. QD my ass. And there you have it. So this is what she would look like if you had everything on it, and it's heavy. It's especially front heavy, although having this guy farther back is helpful. It does reduce the perceived weight, just changes the levers, but it's ergonomic, and this could do pretty much anything. You can do pretty much any task with this gun if you're willing to carry it and able to take the recoil of 308, I guess. But with a scar, the recoil is just not that bad. So again, going back to philosophy of use, what's the point of having this as opposed to the SPR? Is one better than the other? If you could only pick one, which would you pick? Why would anyone have two? Why not just pick one? These are all valid questions. In terms of why would anyone have both, I can't really speak to anyone, but I can tell you why I have both. The Scar is freaking awesome, and I bought it as an impulse buy. I think that's when I realized that I have a problem. But putting that aside, there are some differences, and I think some really important differences. So if you were trying to fill that SPR role, one thing to consider is what kind of ammo are you going to have available to you in whatever end-of-world scenario you're envisioning. Very likely you're going to have a lot of 5.56 and a lot of 308, but probably not super premium stuff. You're not going to have 5.56 that can reach out, go to 800, 900 yards just like a laser beam and hit your target. You're probably dealing with training ammo. That's probably what you have stockpiled mostly, and that's probably what you're going to find. Maybe you'll find green tips. That's great. You should stockpile green tips. But your ability to make full use of your SPR setup is going to be greatly diminished because you're shooting ammo that's just not really meant for that gun. With the SCAR, you do have a gun that's meant to shoot 308 rounds, and all things being equal, shooting your standard 5.56 ammo out of an SPR or shooting your standard 308 ammo out of a SCAR, you're probably going to be more effective at long range with this setup. Also, this gun just looks freaking awesome. Probably could use a paint job. All right, so let's look at the weights for the battle rifle. All right, the battle rifle in the basic configuration is 11 pounds, 5.7 ounces. And with the magazine, it's 12 pounds, 15.6 ounces. Now, the night vision version of the battle rifle with the D-ball is 12 pounds, 1.2 ounces. And with the magazine, it's 13 pounds, 11.7 ounces. Now, the SPR edition battle rifle with the bipod is 12 pounds, 2.7 ounces. And with the magazine included, 13 pounds, 12.6 ounces. And finally, what I call the overmatch battle rifle with both the D-ball and the bipod weighs in at 12 pounds, 14.7 ounces without the magazine, and then with the magazine, 14 pounds, 8.5 ounces. That's a chunky boy. And the SCAR magazine by itself with M80 ball is 1 pound, 9.8 ounces. So you can see how much heavier the 308 is. So if you wanted to carry the overmatch battle rifle with 8 loaded magazines in addition to one of the rifle, that's 180 rounds total. This will result in a combat loadout weighing 27 pounds, 6.9 ounces. Nice. And even if you choose another configuration other than the overmatch, you will likely want to keep the remaining components in your pack, so the resulting overall weight is the same for all configurations. Okay, finally we have the DMR. DMR, of course, stands for Designated Marksman Rifle. This is an AR-10 platform, and it shoots 6.5 Creedmoor. The Designated Marksman Rifle is designed basically as a sniper rifle, usually semi-automatic, designed to reach out beyond 1,000 yards and usually carried by 1 or 2 people in the group, the Designated Marksman. All right, let's go tip to butt. At the end, we have a standard 30 caliber birdcage. Nothing fancy there. This is a 24-inch barrel, by the way, from Ballistic Advantage. It's proved to be very accurate for me. The bipod is a Harris bipod. It's their SPR version. And one thing that's really important about it is that it can't side to side. That's controlled by the little knob here in the back. It just allows it more easily, and then you can kind of lock it in, tighten it down. The canting feature is essential for any valid bipod. Harris has some that don't cant. I think all the Magpul ones do. But just be aware, if you're buying a Harris bipod, make sure it cants, because otherwise, if you're laying on a surface that's not level, your shots are all going to be off, and you won't really have a way to correct for it. Now, you need a level to know if you are level, but again, if you don't have a canting bipod, then you won't really be able to correct for it, except for maybe, propping something under one of your legs. Let's talk about this level for a second. This is from US Optics. It is a rail-mounted level, which I recommend because they're very easy to disconnect. I can just pop it right off here, and you can throw that on any of your rifles. I only have one, and I just move this one around whatever I'm shooting. And if you're doing long-range shooting, it's just a must-have. Because, that arc, when you talk about zero theory, the arc of the bullet to where you're zeroed is based on a level system. So you need to know that your gun is level if you're taking long shots. 9 times out of 10, if you're missing and everything else is correct, that's going to be the problem. That's a really funny statement. if everything else is correct, and then I think 10 times out of 10 if everything else. All right. Scope is a Vortex Razor LHT 4.5 to 22 power. I've done some videos on this, and I like it. It's good. My biggest complaint is that the max elevation adjustment is very low. You can only do, I think, like 4 full rotations or something like that, and it's just not enough. I think if I zeroed it a little differently, then I could get more use out of it. I topped out just beyond 1,000 yards, and I had to start using the reticle. So that's one complaint. Illumination's a little funky, but it's super light, which is the biggest thing. Scalarworks mount goes very well with it because that's also very light and very strong. And I like this height, even though it's a lot higher than most precision rifles would mount their optics. It works well with this B5 Systems stock. So there we go. Magpul pistol grip. The bolt carrier group is a JP Enterprise full mass bolt carrier group, and it's really nice. That's like a $400 bolt carrier group. It's very expensive. I'm not entirely sure that it's worth it because I've never shot with anything else, but I like it. Safety, I believe these are Timber Creek ambidextrous safeties. I'd go Radian if I bought it myself, but they came with the lower when I got it. So I have 20-pound magazines because they're super sexy. You can, of course, get 25 rounders, and sometimes you would want to run those, but like I said, 20 rounders just look so sexy. And of course, Geisley trigger. It's the same SSAE as is in my SPR build, and pretty much all my rifles. Like it. Okay, let's go ahead and weigh the DMR. So just by itself, it's 13 pounds, 6.2 ounces. With a 20-round magazine, it's 14 pounds, 14.2 ounces. And with a 25-round magazine, you get 15 pounds, 0.6 ounces. And just the 25-round magazine with Horn Daddy match ammunition is 1 pound, 7.4 ounces. And the same ammo in the 25-round magazine is 1 pound, 9.8 ounces. So if you want to carry this gun with 8 magazines, including the one in the rifle, 6 20-rounders, and 2 25-rounders, that's 170 rounds total, you're looking at 25 pounds, 6.8 ounces. And that's not including any sort of PDW, personal defense weapon, that you may want to carry in case of an ambush or other close quarters firefight. Now that we have all the weights, let's compare the combat loadouts for each rifle. The SPR comes in at 22 pounds, 14.9 ounces, with 300 rounds. The battle rifle comes in at 27 pounds, 6.9 ounces, nice, and that's 180 rounds. And finally, the DMR comes in at 25 pounds, 6.8 ounces, not including a PDW, of course, and that includes 170 rounds. Now, just so we have a standard of what troops are used to carrying, I have this pretty darn close to clone correct M4 with a 30-round magazine. It weighs in at 10 pounds, 8.9 ounces. If you add 9 30-round magazines to total, again, 300 rounds, then you get 20 pounds, 9.1 ounces. So that just gives you something to compare against. So there you have it. That's my long-range lineup. This is what's worked for me so far. As I continue to shoot these weapons, I'm sure that I'll change some things out and move around. The SCAR, I can tell you right now, it's kind of the Monticello of gun projects. I'm constantly switching the ergonomics and stuff. I think I found something that at least looks the coolest it's ever looked, so I'm hoping to stick with it for now. We'll see if the D-ball even holds 0 in that configuration, but all that aside, I'm not saying that you should replicate these builds. I'm a compulsive gun buyer, not a compulsive gun shooter. You make your own decisions. If you already have a system that works for you, great. But if you don't, maybe this is a starting point. I hope I've at least provided some entertainment for you, and was it worth getting the black curtain? I don't know. Maybe I should go back to scripting this stuff. Compulsive gun buyer out.